Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics, and this is my review of the Trijicon Accupower 1:8 by 28 variable magnification optic. Announced at SHOT Show 2017, the 1:8 by 28 is the newest part of the Accupower line. What's cool about it, right off the bat, is Trijicon announced it at SHOT Show and it was immediately available. I ordered mine through Kinsey's Optics. It was nice that a company released something at SHOT Show and I could immediately get it versus having to wait 2-3 weeks or 6-7 months or 2 years, depending on what the latest and greatest product is. It's become tradition at SHOT Show for companies to release products, and sometimes I feel like they kind of feel like they have to release something even if it's not quite ready. So it's nice for it to actually be available immediately. What's so great about the 1:8? What does it do? What allows it to set itself apart from other low power variable magnification optics that are out there? Right off the bat, you're getting 1:8 first focal plane. As far as I can tell, it is a true X. Close makes no difference as far as my shooting has gone, and I'll talk about that a little more later. But field of view is by 28. What you see on a lot of the LPVOs is it's going to be a by 20 or a by 24. There's a few by 26s floating around out there, but the by 28, that increased field of vision is definitely welcome, especially at the higher magnification settings. By 28, that increased field of vision is definitely appreciated. Moving on from there, it's a 34mm main tube, so you have just a wider body, which is preferable, especially when it comes to, preferable to some people, especially when it comes to the low power variable magnification optics. Give you some options that you wouldn't get with that thinner main body. Illuminated reticle. There are two reticles available for it. There's a MOA segmented circle and a TMR segmented circle. Adjustments are 0.1 mil, sorry. I'm a big fan of the TMR reticle, so I appreciate the fact that the adjustments are in mil, and I'm a real big fan of the turrets. The turrets that they included, or the turrets that they worked into this design. Unlike some of the traditional graduated turrets or the exposed adjustment turrets. If you remember back to my review on some of the other Accupower line, my biggest complaint with them was they were cap captured. I had to screw a cap off, make my adjustments, and then screw a cap back on. Of course, the advantage to that is if the rifle's slung, you're not necessarily going to inadvertently create an adjustment you didn't want to create, and not thinking about it, go ahead and shoot and be like, oh wait, my knob's moved, I didn't want it to move, so now I'm an inch or 2 inches, 3 inches off, what have you. These knobs, I actually have to pull up on them, make my adjustment, tactile clicks, and then when I'm done, push the knob back down, which is the reverse of what you may be used to with some of the other optics that are out there. That feature's pretty damn awesome, and the fact that the knobs are so big, it would be somewhat difficult for you to miss an inadvertent adjustment when you're coming onto the gun and be like, oh wait, my turret has definitely been moved. Now, once you've zeroed the gun, to reset the turrets, you simply screw the tops off, pull the entire turret body off, turn it back to its set zero position, and then screw the top back on, and then you're ready to go and make adjustments from there. Battery life on the illuminated reticle, you've got 11 illumination settings. Battery life is right around 31 hours on max brightness. Some people are immediately going to be like, oh, that's not very much. And you're right, it's not, but don't necessarily think about this as a red dot sight, even though it does give you some of that performance, which we'll get to. For an illuminated reticle on a magnified optic, 31 hours is pretty damn good. For a duty rifle or home defense rifle, anytime you've turned it on for any due amount of time, just go ahead and replace the battery. I mean, we're talking $2 or $3. And the cool thing is the reticle doesn't happen to illuminate, you can still use the crosshairs. Under low light conditions, you're going to backlight that black crosshair, so it's not going to be a big deal. Only during the day could I see it being a significant issue, not being able to have your reticle illuminate. One thing I noticed about the green reticle versus the red, I only got the green for the review process, is it is not as bright in daylight conditions. Indoors, mesopic light, low light, it works great. But outdoors, the green just isn't bright enough to really pick up, especially against a green or a more nature backdrop. Urban settings, this is a little bit better. But even with that factor, even that being kind of a small negative, again, it's not a huge issue. If I had to do things over again, I probably would have went with the red, just because red is, well, it's a desirable color for red dot sights for a reason. So if I had to do it over again, I probably would have went with the red. The green is still an excellent choice, especially if your rifle is going to be for less active purposes. I was able to get 1,000 rounds underneath the 1-8 during the review process, which I think is considerable in the short amount of time I've had it. It's a really great optic, and I'm saying that now. Getting specifically into use, CQB purposes. The glass is really clean. It's got a very generous eye relief, very generous exit pupil, so I don't feel like I have to swim for that 1x setting, and I certainly don't have to readjust my cheek weld when I dial in to higher magnifications, which I really appreciated. Some of the other first focal plane or even variable magnification optics I've used in the past has presented a problem. I had to make a slight cheek adjustment when I went into max magnification because I started to get that scope shadow, which is something I definitely don't want. But in those closer quarters, running the 1-8 like you would a red dot sight, not an issue at all. 2-eye open shooting, I was able to easily acquire. I didn't have to use the occluded technique as much as I've found that I've had to use on some optics in the past. Great thing about it is when you're on the glass, the actual scope body border is not significantly distracting, so you don't feel like you're getting as much of a tunnel effect as maybe you've seen on some optics in the past. I think they put a lot of thought into that as well. They kind of wanted to minimize that border as much as possible and give you really generous eye relief, exit pupil if you will, when you're on the optic on that one setting. First focal plane, which I've already mentioned a couple times. For those of you not familiar with what first focal plane is, you've either got first or second focal plane, and of course you can do your own research on benefits, pros and cons. My personal feeling on the LPVOs, especially this particular optic's a 1-8, so being first focal plane for me is ideal because I want that true 1x, and first focal plane is more likely to give it to you. One of the potential drawbacks of first focal plane is as you increase magnification, the reticle does grow in size relative to the distance that you are magnifying. Which it allows for near parallax shooting and true estimation at distance regardless of what setting you're on, if you're using the actual graduated reticle to estimate distance, which is what it's for. So first focal plane is great for optics that are for guns like that. If you're looking for something for longer range shooting, this might not be a good choice for you, especially if you're worried about if you're shooting really extreme long range, if you're worried about the size of the reticle obscuring the size of the target that you're actually shooting at. But for general intermediate distances, I've really grown to love the first focal plane optics. Elephant in the room, as always, is durability. How well is the Trijicon going to hold up? Is it duty grade, quote unquote duty grade? Obviously, I can't accelerate the life cycle too much, but what I can do is simulate hard use. Besides the optic being knocked around during my own personal practice and training when I was actually doing the review process, one thing I can do is do a simulated drop test. Actually, it's not simulated at all. I actually do it. And if you've seen my optics reviews in past, you know exactly what's coming. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a 5-round shot group I shot MagPod supported using 55 grain PMC. So this is where the scope is hitting at 100 meters on that particular day. Now we'll just go ahead and simulate some hard use. The caveat, or I should say the disclaimer I always give you, is if your rifle takes any kind of fall whatsoever, check your zero before you trust your life to it if you can. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and throw this 1-8 off a balcony. Well, I've definitely gotten better bounces in the past. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and show you a 5-round group after the drop. Immediately after the drop, I went ahead and shot the same group, same difference, 100 meters, same ammunition, 55 grain PMC. It's still in the neighborhood that it's supposed to be in as far as I can tell. Could there have been a slight gyro shift? I don't really detect one based on the conditions and methods I was using to shoot this group. Granted, I should have been able to bag the gun down or sled it completely and take as much human element out of it as possible. That's something I definitely want to pursue in the future on future optics reviews, but for what I had, for all intents and purposes, I'm happy with where it was hitting. Of course, I'm still going to, independently take it and make sure it is in fact zero, re-zero it if you will, because I am really pedantic when it comes to my rifle zeros. But as far as I can tell, no meaningful shift in zero based on that drop. Other great features, keeping with the Accupoint line, your foxtail for your zeroing adjustment, smooth. It doesn't require your quote-unquote break-in period that I've seen with some other optics, and it does have a slight nub versus some that really don't have much. I would still put an actual foxtail or whatever you want to call that extreme handle on there just so you can make those really quick transitions without losing too much control over the gun, because that does require you to support, and some people have an issue with that. Another cool thing is your illumination adjustment is on support hand side, so you can make those adjustments really quick on the fly if you need to. One thing that I noticed that I didn't really care for with the reticle, especially with the illumination on a really high brightness like a 9, 10, or 11 setting, is it did kind of bleed into the lower parts of the reticle where it wasn't necessarily supposed to be. It's just supposed to be the segmented circles and that cross in the middle, my objective point of aim. But I was getting it a little bit lower. I don't know if you're able to see it in these reticle shots in the reticle itself. Not a huge deal, but I did notice it. It is a little bit distracting. It may just be a one-off with this one scope. I'm definitely going to check on that, and if it is, I'll send it in, get it fixed, no big deal. And of course, the only other drawback I really had was I should have went with red. Lesson learned. I wanted to try out the green. There's nothing wrong with the green. I would just prefer the red because from what I can tell in the reds that I was able to shoot when I was out at SHOT Show, they definitely are more vibrant in varied lighting conditions than the green. So how does it stack up? Again, I don't do comparisons, but it weighs in at right around 25 ounces without the mount, whatever mount you're going to use, which is pretty competitive given other first focal plane optics that are out there. And it's a 1:8 versus a 1:6, which is what I've seen most, I guess, regularly with other first focal planes. 1:8 is nice. I can't wait for somebody to figure out how to do a 1:10. I'm really looking forward to that. If you're going to use a low power variable magnification optic, you just need to be ready for that weight. It's going to weigh more than the red dot sight that you're used to, so you need to just go ahead and accept that that's going to be a thing until technology improves. Sure, I'm sure they made this as light as they possibly could. Barring a new technology invention or using an alloy or a metal that you're not willing to pay the extra money for, this is probably as light as Trijicon can get it. And I definitely appreciate that it is the weight that it is. Yeah, it could be lighter, but I think we're going to have to wait until the future before that's going to happen. All things considered, this is one of the finest, if not the finest, first focal plane optics I've ever used. And I don't say that. That's actually, I should say, that's a well-defended title. I have another go-to first focal plane. In fact, I put a review out on it not too long ago. I'm going to sell that one and buy 2 more of these. I'm definitely sold on the new Trijicon's new 1:8. I think it's got the right features at the right price point. The MSRP is right around $1,600, but I've already seen them online for as low as $1,100. For a first focal plane, especially a 1:8 with all the stuff that comes packed into this optic, you're getting a great deal at that price. So I'm giving the 1:8 a huge 2 big thumbs up. I couldn't be more excited about it, and I'm looking forward to getting another one in red to put on my actual duty rifle. I'm Aaron Cowan with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.